We're excited to have Professor Gail Lewis here with us today for another beautiful workshop. My name is Raquel Charia. I'm Executive Director for the Center for the Women of New York. I'm joined by my co-host today, Miss Victoria Pilati, and the CWNY staff and team members, Lana and Emily. So take it away, Victoria.
Thank you, Raquel. Good morning, everyone. As you can see, the center has been busy with very many activities. We were established in 1987, and we are a nonprofit dedicated to the equality, advancement, and well-being of women. We have two locations, one in the beautiful Fort Totten Park in Bayside, and the other in Queensborough Hall in Kew Gardens. We hope you'll stop by. And these are the offerings we have. These are the many programs, and we are continuing to add more to meet the needs of women. We welcome Professor Gail Lewis. Before that, we have all our recordings on the YouTube channel, and you can check out CWNY.org past events for our past workshops. Your questions are important and will be addressed after Gail's presentation. Please write your questions in the chat, and then you can ask her your questions after her presentation.
So I'm excited to be here today because we're talking about a skill that is just so incredibly important for all of us as we try and get hired, or maybe as we change our career fields, and that is the interview process. The interview process is just, well, it can be scary, of course. It could be very nerve-wracking to go out on job interviews, of course. But even though it's so incredibly scary, it's so important to do well on job interviews. And so that's why today with CWNY, we're going to do this workshop on interviewing skills, and we're actually going to do a mock interview. So it's truly interactive today. As you know, I'm Professor Gail Lewis, and I come to you from CUNY, and it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon. So let's get started. I always start by asking the same question, and that is, at work, in your career, it's your job, who gets hired and who gets ahead? Well, of course, people who get hired are the people with certain credentials and certain education, certain experience on the job. Also, people who keep their jobs are people who perform well at work, people who communicate well at work, bring in revenue, excel in their performance. And my question today is, who gets hired and who keeps their jobs? People who interview well. Good interview skills help you, of course, get the job, but those are the same communication skills that help you to keep the job. So it's really important to learn these skills, not just to get you in the door, but to keep you in the workplace. So think about what you have agency or control over at your job. You might not have control over where you work or everything in your career, maybe exactly where your workplace is, etc. But something that you do have agency or control over is how well you do on a job interview. These interview skills, as we just said, can help you navigate the workplace and also assist you in achieving your professional and your personal goals. So today we're going to look at several things. We're going to start by looking at why effective interview skills are so important. Next, we're going to look at interview skills best practices, and we're going to look at some interview questions. And then lastly, we're going to look at mock interviews. We're going to try a mock interview. Whoops, what just happened there? So we'll do all of those today. Here we go. So let's move along. So first, let's look at why are effective interview skills so incredibly important? For several reasons. First, for employers, and second, for job candidates. First, for employers, an interview enables an employer to determine if an applicant's skills, experience, and personality meet the job's requirements. Just the other day, I was speaking to someone who was interviewing or doing interviews for jobs for candidates. And they said, you know, it's really great to look at the LinkedIn profile. It's really great to look at someone's resume online, and even to just look at their references, but nothing beats actually meeting that person. Nothing beats turning on Zoom and seeing that person live and in person, or having that person walk into your office and meeting them for the first time. These are really important things. And so, oops, sorry about that again there, guys. So getting having effective interview skills are important, not only to you, but also to the employer. Effective interview skills can help an employer assess whether an applicant would be a good fit for the corporate culture as well. And then for us, the job candidates, effective interview skills help candidates prepare for interviews and guide job candidates as they participate in job interviews. Being prepared for something, having preparation and practice lowers your overall stress. So as we said at the very beginning of this workshop, it's stressful going out on a job interview. To reduce your apprehension, to reduce that stress, being prepared and being practiced is going to go a long way. You're just more confident when you're practiced. Think about anything that you've done in your life that you haven't practiced for, and then doing that same task practiced. Maybe taking an exam back in high school. Remember how anxious you would be if you hadn't studied, and think about how less anxious you were when you were prepared. Same thing on job interviews. Job interview skills help you to reduce that stress and actively and effectively participate in job interviews. Effective interview skills also assist with in-depth prep and help an applicant feel more comfortable and confident. So let's move along. There are some best practices with interview skills. So let's look at those. Effective interview skills can be divided into 3 parts. First, what you do before the interview. Second, what you do during the interview. And lastly, what you do after the interview. So let's get started by looking at best practices before we ever put our foot in the door. Picture it. You've sent out a million references, a million resumes. You've applied for 100 different jobs, and finally, you've gotten an interview. There are some things you need to do before the interview, and let's explore them. First, research. Before you go into a job interview, do a little homework. Research the company. It can be something as simple as Googling the company to find out a little bit more about them. Do they have an office in New York and an office on Long Island? Maybe they have another office in the Bronx. These are things you can easily find out by Googling. You can also look through the corporation or the company's website for any particular news or current events. Look at the About Us section of the website. Of course, check out the company's social media. Look at their LinkedIn profile, their Instagram, so you can get an idea of what's important in the corporate culture. Additionally, talk to employees if you know any. Check out your own social media to see if you are connected with anyone who works at one of their company's placements, so that you can ask them some questions about what it's like to work there. After you research the company, research the position that you are applying for. One of the best ways to do this is to go back to that original job posting. read through that again. Usually, almost everything you need to know about the position is in that posting. Specific skills, requirements, where the job is actually located. You might find those things in that original job posting. So go back and find it, read it, and reread it. Additionally, after you've looked through the job listing, look at that particular position in other companies so that you can get an idea of the scope of work and also any special skills that are going to help you out on that job, so that if you have those skills, you can speak to them on the interview. Research that job title to get a general idea about what's expected for that position, because the more you know about the position, the better prepared you're going to be for the interview. Additionally, before the interview, prepare. After you've done your homework and you've researched, prepare for your interview. Set aside at least an hour of uninterrupted time the day before or early in the morning the day of to prepare. Reread that job description and determine the most relevant responsibilities and requirements of that position. Keep those in your mind so that you can refer back to them when you are on the interview, saying things to the effect of, I know that this job requires great organizational skills. I happen to have great organization skills as I, and then use a specific example. Additionally, when you're prepping, brainstorm several specific answers to potential questions related to the position and the duties that will be expected of you. And review your cover letter and your resume that you provided to that company to ensure that you remember how you initially presented yourself. I know when I was applying for jobs, I would tailor my resume for each job so that when I did get an interview, I had to go back and look at the resume that I sent to that particular company to see which of the skills that I have I highlighted on that particular resume. So if you've been tailoring your resume for each job, go back and reread your resume and the cover letter if you sent one. Additionally, to prepare, you want to research possible interview questions related to the position and to the industry, and less specific interview questions as well. And we'll get to those in just a moment. Practice answering interview questions with a friend or a family member or on FaceTime or in front of the mirror, but practice out loud. The act of speaking and hearing yourself speak will help your brain to remember those answers and help you to perform better on your interview. Prepare several specific examples from your own job experience, including any milestones or challenges that you overcame at work or successes that you've had on the job to support your interview answers and help strengthen your responses. So let's say one day you were working at Target and there was a huge shipment that came in, and you got a team together and broke that shipment down and got everything stocked and put away on the shelves perfectly. You want to speak to that on your next job interview. Talk about how your managerial skills in that situation and also your organizational skills and execution skills helped to make that huge task come to fruition on time and effectively. Even the smallest things that you do at work, but that you do well, can be added to these types of stories and can really help in showing you in a great light to an interviewer. I'll share a link of questions after the presentation, so that after this presentation, you can go through those lists of questions with answers and practice them out loud for yourself so that you can be as effective on your next job interview as possible. So now that we looked at best practices before the interview, let's look at some things that we can do during the interview that are best practices as well. First, show up on time. You want to enter wherever it is that you are having the interview 15 minutes before the actual interview time. Some people want to show up an hour before, but that's really too early. 15 minutes is the perfect sweet spot. So if you get to the place early, if you're doing an in-person interview, just hang out downstairs or in the local Starbucks and then go upstairs to the actual interview 15 minutes before it's about to start. If your interview is on Zoom or any other online platform, make sure that you log in early and that you have your lighting and your background set so that 5 minutes before the interview time, you can just log on without any issues. So be on time. Additionally, be professional. You would be amazed how just tucking in your shirt and ironing it makes you look professional. So you want to wear pressed clothing that's clean, dress for the job that you want, and not too casually. The best practice for an interview is to look business casual. So again, that means clean clothes that are ironed and tucked in. If you're interviewing online, all we're really going to see is from the top of your head to about your waist. So that's a little bit easier. You can just put on a pressed shirt, a button-down shirt, or a sweater, something that looks professional. Of course, if you're in person, then your whole person needs to be professional looking. But I can't stress it enough. Wear clean clothes that are ironed and tucked in. When you show up, remember to use professional language. Leave the word like at the door. So a lot of us use the word like a lot in speaking with our friends and family. When you're on an interview, you want to try and use more formal language. So that means eradicating the word like, if you possibly can, out of your language for the interview. And again, the more you practice out loud, the easier this will be. And of course, be polite. If there's someone who greets you at the door, be polite to them, and be polite to everyone on the job site. Greet the interviewer, and if especially as women, I find that we don't really shake hands a lot as women. So on an interview, if it's in person, someone might extend their hand to you, and if they do, please be sure to shake their hand. And you might want to practice shaking hands with a friend or a family member beforehand if it's something that you just don't do very often, just to kind of make sure that you've got the shake down pat. And of course, if it's online interview, make sure that you greet your interviewer and be polite. Avoid interrupting the person who's interviewing you. Usually there's some sort of script or something that they might have to read through, or by law that they have to say. So try not to interrupt them when they first get started and let them ask the questions. But also have some questions available at the end of the interview, because at the end of the interview, traditionally, an interviewer will ask you, do you have any questions? That's your time to shine. You might want to ask a question about the corporate culture, or maybe my favorite question, which is, what is a typical day like at XYZ job or doing this position? And that's a great question to ask someone, because it shows that you're really interested in that particular position. So avoid interrupting when they're going through that script. Usually it's something that by law they have to say. So let them, please, don't interrupt them. Just let them do their script if they have to. Listen to understand, not to respond. So a lot of times, if you remember with the listening skills workshop that we did a few months ago, a lot of times we listen, and while we're listening, we're formulating an answer in our minds, and that's great except that we miss some of the information that's being given to us when we are just quick to jump in with a response. So on a job interview, you want to be actively listening to the entire question and then answering. So it's a little more formal than we might be in regular everyday communication, in that we're going to let the person asking the question finish asking the question, and then we're going to answer and respond. And also remember your nonverbals. You want to show that you're listening, nod your head, sit up straight, and show that you're actively listening when when the interviewer is speaking. Remember your posture. Good posture exudes confidence. So especially when we're nervous, I know that we tend to slump over, hunch up. So you want to remind yourself, sit up straight, because that's going to show the interviewer that you're confident. Even if we're online, you can see posture. So make sure that you are, even online, sitting up straight. Ask that question at the end. Always have 1 or 2 questions prepared. So make sure that you have that question. What's a typical day like? Ready to go. And maybe another question as well. But here's another pro tip. Try not to ask about things like, how many vacation days do we get? Or what's my salary going to be? Hang out with those questions. They will be answered if there's an interest, further interest in you as an employee. They will give you an offer with your dollar amount, and they'll also tell you about how many days off you get as well. I know it's really, really tempting to just ask off the bat, hey, what's the vacation policy? But you want to hold off on that question. You don't want to seem as if you're just in it for the days off. And also show an interest at the very end of your conversation, your interview. If you're shaking hands or if you're logging off, before you log off or before you leave, make sure you say, I look forward to hearing from you. It's been a pleasure meeting you. I look forward to hearing from you. That shows that you're eager and have an interest. So now that we've looked at things that you should do during the interview that are best practices, let's move ahead and look at a few things that you should do after the job interview. So best practices for after the job interview include following up with your potential employer. Here's a story. I went for a job interview. Actually, it's a job I presently have. And it was a group interview. So there were maybe 6 people in the room interviewing me. And I made note of everyone's name in the room. After the job interview, I went down to the corner to Walgreens and I got 6 different thank you cards. They were 99 cents each. I would have gone to the dollar store, but it was clear across town and the bus was stopped right in front of Walgreens. So I went into Walgreens. I bought 6 different thank you cards from Walgreens, 99 cents each. How exciting. And then when I got home, I got on the bus, I went home, and then as soon as I got home, and there was a post office right next to the Walgreens as well, I bought some stamps while I was there. By the time I got home, I wrote out 6 different thank you cards, and then I had those ready to mail the next day. And I sent 6 different emails saying thank you to each person who took the time to interview me. And then fast forward, I get the job. Many, many months later, I'm on the job, and I happen to be walking past someone who interviewed me's desk. And right up there on their desk with a thumbtack attached to their desk was that thank you note that I sent to them, thanking them for the interview. And I thought to myself, they kept that thank you note and they stuck it up in their cubicle. So maybe that made some real impression on them. So I tell you the story because if you can do something like that, if you can just get at the dollar store, they have a pack of 6 or 8 thank you notes. You can get those packs, have some stamps ready, and just do an old school handwritten thank you card. Now, that's not going to get there for a few days, so you might want to also just send a quick thank you email the same day of the interview or the next day as well. But these little follow-up things put you ahead of other job candidates. So following up as soon after an interview is crucial. A thank you card or thank you email can go a long way. Think about it. Years later, that thank you card is still sticking up on her cubicle. A long way to show the interviewer that you're genuinely interested in the position and also that you're grateful that they took time out. So send a follow-up email or a note that same day or the next day, just to show them that you are really interested. So now that we've looked at best practices for after the interview, let's look at some possible, very popular interview questions and answers. The first interview question that's really popular, probably the first one that you'll get right out of the gate. Tell me about yourself. Describe your background. No matter what job interview you're going on, you should have an answer to this question prepared. Tell me about yourself. No matter, even if it's a college interview, an interview for a job, an interview, whatever you're doing as an interview, this is a very popular question. So definitely you want to make sure that you have an answer for this one ready. Interviewers like to hear stories about candidates, so make sure your story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Craft a story about yourself that highlights your skills, your special skills, any experience that you have, and of course, any education or training that you have with that particular industry. Talk about a relevant incident that made you interested in that particular profession that you're pursuing, and follow up by discussion your education and your training in that area. In your story, weave together your training, your passion for the job, your passion for the industry and the company, combined with your work experience and why you're such a great fit for the job. A lot, yes, I know, but you're going to sit down and you're going to really brainstorm and come up with an answer for this question. I remember when I went on a college interview, they asked me why I wanted to go to that college. And I remember just telling them, just honestly, that I can remember as a small child, we went on a car trip, and it wasn't even a very long car trip or anything, but we'd gotten a car and we went on this trip. And I can remember seeing that college and just seeing the sign. The sign was gold. I could still see it in my head today. And it made such an impression on me. I remember saying, oh, I want to go to school there. Fast forward, 15 years later, 16 years later, I was sitting there on a college interview, and I remembered that very vividly. And I told them that, and it made quite an impression. And I got a scholarship and I went to that school. So weave your story together as well. Tell me about yourself. Describe your background. Here's an example. And you can see, you can take things from different areas of your life and weave them into the answer for this question. I come from a small town where opportunities were limited. I started using online learning to stay up to date. That's where I learned to code. And I went on to get my certification as a computer programmer. After I got my first job as a front-end coder, I continued online learning to master both front and back-end languages, tools, and frameworks. So it's a great story. It talks about background. I come from a background where I didn't have a lot of advantages. I did online learning. I got some certification. I got my first job. I did more online learning and I got more certifications. And now I'm looking to this job. So it shows that progression, and it shows that you have an interest and that you're hungry to always learn and do more. So whatever your story is, talking about yourself, make sure that you come up with something that shines a great light on you, talks about your background, and also talks about the fact that you're going to be a great fit for that job. Another interview question, in addition to tell me about yourself, is how did you hear about this position? This is a popular one because people want to know if you are connected to someone else in that workplace. That's really what this question is about a lot of times. So employers want to know whether you're actively seeking out that particular company, or whether someone told you about that company, or maybe you're connected to a current employee. So if someone recommended you for that position, make sure you tell the interviewer that person's name. Don't take it for granted that they would know that you were referred there by someone. And if you sought out the role for yourself, be clear about what caught your eye about that particular position and that particular company. And see if there's any way to align your values with the company's values. Did this role sound like a good fit? Does it align with the direction you want to take your career? Be enthusiastic about what you learned about the company. So here's a great example of an answer to this question. How did you hear about the position? I learned about the position through LinkedIn, as I've been following your company page for quite a while right now. So that shows that you've got an interest in this particular company and this particular position, and that you've been eager to work there for quite some time. I'm really passionate about the work you're doing in XYZ and whatever that they're doing. So I was excited to apply. The required skills match well with the skills I have. You always want to say something to the effect of that, like, this job requires X, Y, and Z, and I have X, Y, Z. You always want to make sure that you draw a clear line between the skills that you have and the skills necessary to do that job well. That kind of connection, connecting those dots for your employer, it is going to go a very, very long way. It seems like a great opportunity for me to contribute to your company, as well as a great move for my career. So that's an excellent answer. It shows that I have an interest, a long-standing interest, and that I have XYZ skills, and this job calls for XYZ skills. So I'm a perfect fit as well. Here's another interview question. When you're balancing multiple projects, how do you keep yourself organized? No matter what position you're applying for, people want to know how, or if you are an organized person, and if you are, how you keep yourself organized. Employers want to understand how you use your time and your energy to stay productive and efficient. So be sure to emphasize that you adhere to deadlines and that you take them seriously. So you want to be organized so that you meet your deadlines. Employers want to hire people who get the work done well, and get the work done on time. Discuss a specific instance when you stayed on track. So here's a great example. I'm used to juggling projects at my current job, where I'm often moving between coding one software program to another. I allocate time on my calendar for certain tasks. I found it really helps me prioritize what needs to get done first, and it holds me accountable for day-to-day tasks I'm responsible for. So it shows I use tools like a calendar or Slack, whatever kind of tools you use or you might be familiar with, to keep me on track and to keep me on time and focused and getting things done well and on time. So again, really important that you express those characteristics to your potential employer. I'm an organized person. I use good organizational tools, and I can bring my good sense of organization into this job and this position. And lastly, the last question that we want to go through today for the question and answer is, what did you do in the last year to improve your knowledge? This one is really important. Whether you're brand new to a job or an industry, or you've been working at that industry or that particular type of job for 10 or 15 years, employers always want to know what you're doing to make yourself better. Excuse me, to keep yourself current on whatever the job skills are. So you should be able to answer this question very easily because you're here right now. Whatever you've done in the past year to help yourself excel, to get better in what you do and how you do it, it's going to be probably a good fit for this question. So we learned from experience, and we learn from every experience that we have. If you've spent time honing your professional skills by attending workshops like this one that you're attending right now from CWNY, you might say something about that in your job interview. So when you're asked, what did you do in the last year to improve your knowledge? You might say something like, I read a lot of journals to keep abreast of the latest ideas in my field and sharpen my skills by taking some online workshops, such as one on time management from CWNY, or an interview skills workshop, or whatever workshops you attended online or in person. This is the type of question that really just shows your employer that you're always trying to improve yourself. You're a master of what you do, and you're always open to new ideas and new ways of doing things, and you're always trying to improve. So whether it be a CWNY 1-hour workshop that you attended in between doing 2 other things, or some other type of learning, maybe you did something at the public library, or maybe in your community, maybe your child's Girl Scouts had a workshop that you attended, whatever it was, you can add it to this answer. It's going to help you out with this answer, because I find that we do a lot more than we give ourselves credit for. Especially, let's break it down. As women, we tend to not give ourselves the credit, I think, that we deserve. We tend to sometimes just kind of, I did that, but that really wasn't too important. Yeah, I think when we do things like this and we make lists for these types of things like interview questions, it's important for us to stop and to think about all of these things that we do, make a list of them, and have them help us out. So now that we've looked at interview questions and answers, it's time for us to practice some interview skills. We have Emily on the line today, and she is going to help us out with some practice with interview skills. So Emily, hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, Gail. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on to practice skills with everybody today.
Great. Let's see. So let's whoops, here, let me put this up for you. I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and then we'll just kind of go through just a few questions, and then after that we'll just talk about how well you did. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay. So the first one, Emily, tell me about yourself and your background.
Sure. So right now I am a student at NYU in the Wagner School of Public Service. I'm getting my master's degree in public and nonprofit administration. Prior to coming to Wagner and to sort of moving into the nonprofit field, my background was in education and childcare. I still hold on to that passion for helping people and for, doing work, boots on the ground, and connecting with people. And that's something that I try to bring to my work in the nonprofit field.
I love that you included passion in there and connecting with people. Those are such great qualities that no matter what your job you were looking for, those are things that will really resonate with your potential employer. So that was a really great answer. And I like that you stressed that you've got a great education in there too. What I might add also, when you're telling us about yourself, is just some other things that you've learned, maybe about organizational skills, or just day-to-day skills that might help you on that particular job. But that was an excellent answer. Thanks, Emily. So we're
Thanks.
going to throw another one at you.
Okay, here we go.
On this one, you can just make up your answer. How did you hear about this position?
I found this position through my college's Career Services Center. I was connected by a career counselor to this opportunity. They looked at, my skills and my background and helped me find positions that fit with my career goals and with the skills that I already have.
Nice, great answer. And you showed that you worked with someone in trying to look for a position. That shows that you are good at seeking out help. So that's another great quality to have. So well done there as well, Emily. Thank you. Also, how do you keep yourself organized, Emily?
So at my last position, I worked for a charity called Catholic Charities, and my position was to coordinate volunteers and donations. So those are two totally different sort of tasks that I had to juggle all the time. And to juggle those tasks, I used reminders on my phone to make sure that I was meeting deadlines, and utilized the company-wide Google Calendar to make sure that I wasn't just meeting my own internal, set to-do list, but also meeting like company goals. And I make a to-do list of priorities each day that I try to check off throughout the day.
I love that answer. Thank you, Emily. What Emily did really well in that answer was that she talked about tools that are free and easily accessible to all of us. So it's great if you use organizational tools that are specific to an organization or a job. But let's say that you're just starting out, or let's say that you're re-entering the workforce after a long time, or maybe you're changing jobs and you're completely changing your career. So maybe you were in sales and now you're looking for something else, maybe in accounting. What Emily did well there was she spoke to tools that we all can use all the time. The Google Calendar, the shared Google Calendar. Maybe you do that with your kids. If so, that's something that you can talk about in an interview. And also just using your phone for everyday organization, setting reminders on your phone. It shows that even without industry tools or specific, more advanced tools, that you can use even the most basic tools to keep yourself organized. So that's a great example to anyone who's listening, who's changing jobs or has been out of the workforce for a while or changing industries, that you can always even speak to the most basic of organizational tools. So great job, Emily. And now I'm going to give you a final question. And this is one that we hear a lot as a final question in interviews. Why should I hire you?
I think that I bring a creative perspective to all the work that I do. I try to be thoughtful and innovative with how I approach projects. And I also think I have a warm personality, which makes me a strong candidate to be part of any team and to work with others. So that is why you should hire me for this position.
Great. Thanks, Emily. Thoughtful, team, personality. The only thing that you missed in there was communication. But other than that, you hit on all of the key words that your employer is going to be listening for. They want someone who's a good team player. They want someone with a great personality, and they want someone who can get things done on time and well. And you spoke to all of those in that final answer. And then after that, the question would probably be something like, do you have any questions for me? So what do you think you would say for that answer, for that question?
One of my favorite questions to ask is like, what is your favorite part of your job? Like your job at the company. I also like to ask, like, what quality do you look for most in an employee?
Those are great questions. Absolutely. Again, they allow the employer to tell you a little bit more about the job, and they show that you're eager to work there and in that position. So well done, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
Thanks for being our mock interviewee today. I know that that's a little bit nerve-wracking. It can be. So thanks for playing along. I appreciate it. So today we looked at why interview skills are so important, some best practices for interviewing skills, both before, during, and after the interview. Then we looked at some possible questions and answers. And then lastly, we had a mock interview with Emily, our volunteer for the day. So thanks, Emily. So thank you everyone for joining us today for our mock interview and interview skills workshop. We're going to see you for our next workshop on Monday, April 8th. And you can always keep in touch with me. I am Professor Gail Lewis. I'm a CUNY professor, and my email address is right there on the slides. And now my shameless plug, if you're ever interested in learning more about public speaking, good communication skills, and also effective leadership skills, look for a Toastmasters club in your neighborhood. Toastmasters is a not-for-profit international organization with clubs all over Queens and all over the 5 boroughs and all over the world. And you can always attend a Toastmasters meeting for free and learn about better public speaking skills and leadership skills. So thank you to the Center for the Women of New York, as always, CWNY. It's been my pleasure being here with you today. Does anybody have any questions? I didn't see any in the chat earlier. Let's see. Anyone have any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat. And Victoria, I'll turn it back over to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail. That was wonderful. We learned so much. And thank you, Emily, for being so courageous. Kudos to Emily. So we'd like to say a little bit about the center. I placed it in the chat, but we do have a slide that reflects where you can find more of these recordings of Professor Lewis's astute and learning experiences. And she referred to a listening workshop. There is a prior interview workshop where she also had a different volunteer. So you might want to check our YouTube channel. So here is the 2 addresses that we have. And our YouTube channel is at Center for the Women of New York. We also have Facebook, Twitter X, and we have a podcast channel. So we do hope you'll visit our YouTube channel for more of Gail's wonderful, wonderful workshops. And also do become a member of the Center for the Women of New York. And please do visit our website and donate to our cause so we can present more of these workshops. And especially this being Women's History Month, please do support women and help us support women.